at the school.
因為嗰個星期六佢哋喺學校裏邊有慶祝會。
And my daughter said to her friend Jennifer,
我嘅女兒話俾 Jennifer 聽，
I have to be home at 10 o'clock.
我要10點鐘翻到屋企。
And Jennifer said to her, Why?
咁 Jennifer 話點解？
Because my daddy told me I had to be.
因為我爸爸話我一定要咁做。
Jennifer said to her,
咁 Jennifer 講，
I wish your father was my daddy.
我就希望你嘅爸爸係我爸爸，
Because my parents don't care when I come home.
因為我嘅父母根本唔理我幾時翻屋企。
Wow.
你明白嗎？
Because I gave my children limits.
因為我俾我嘅女兒一啲限制，
Their friends would say, I wish your daddy was my daddy.
咁佢嘅朋友會話：我希望我嘅爸爸好似你嘅爸爸一樣。
We owe it to our children.
我哋係要咁做嘅，
But we got to make sure those rules are reasonable.
我哋要知道呢啲規條係合理嘅。
Usually the mother gives reasonable rules.
通常媽媽俾嘅規條都係合理嘅，
Fathers don't.
爸爸就唔會啦。
We are too severe.
我哋通常都太嚴格。
You did what?
你做咗啲乜嘢？
You're grounded for 2 years.
你2年都唔可以出街。
Dads,
做爸爸嘅，
listen to this wisdom of experience.
你要聽我呢個智慧。
Never go shopping for food when you're hungry.
你喺肚餓嗰時，千祈唔好去買食物。
You almost always buy the wrong thing and too much.
你通常都會買咗太多嘢，同埋
I'm
買錯
serious.
咗。我係好嚴肅嘅。
Never discipline a child when you are angry.
當你好唔開心嗰時，好憤怒嗰時，唔好去懲罰你嘅小孩子，
You almost always will do the wrong thing.
因為你一定會做錯嘢。
Wait.
你要等，
Give it time.
俾啲時間，
Besides, your kid will be sweating.
因為你嘅小朋友會好驚。
Because your kid will know something's going to happen and gives them a little while to think about it.
因為佢知道一定有事會發生，你俾啲時間佢諗一諗。
Here is something between my wife and me.
呢個係我同我太太之間嘅事。
I have the propensity to be too severe,
我通常都太嚴格，
to set unreasonable rules or boundaries.
有好多唔合理嘅規條或者限制。
And many times my wife,
而我太太，
you probably find this hard to believe.
你可能唔相信我講嘅嘢。
People in my country do.
喺我國家啲人都咁做嘅，
So I very seldom share it publicly.
所以我好少喺公開嘅時候講呢件事。
In 50 years of marriage,
喺50年嘅婚姻當中，
with 4 children,
有4個小孩子，
my children
我啲小朋友，
have never,
佢哋從來都冇
ever
做過
heard their mother
傷害佢嘅媽媽，
with body language,
唔理係用佢嘅姿勢，
attitude,
或者係佢嘅態
or
度，
words,
或者係佢嘅言語，
question my authority in front of my children.
或者係喺我嘅面前去問我嘅，係挑戰我嘅權威。
Never.
佢從來冇做過，
Not even when I was the worst of being wrong.
就算我做錯咗嘢，
However,
但係
my children knew
但係我嘅孩子都知道。
when their mother would say to me,
但係當佢媽媽講呢句話嘅時候，
honey,
親愛的，
we need to go into another room and talk.
我哋要去另外一間房間去傾偈，我就知死啦。
I just ran my own samurai sword right through me.
我就啱啱俾人打敗咗啦。
That's not what I said.
Basically, yes, that's the meaning.
My children knew
我孩子們都知道，
when we went in and out of the room
當我哋喺另外一間房間嗰時，
and their mom closed the door,
我太太閂埋道門，
I wouldn't have closed it.
我就唔會閂門嘅。
When their mom closed the door,
當佢媽媽閂埋道門嗰時候，
they knew
佢哋知道，
Daddy was getting it.
佢哋知道個爸爸係俾佢打一餐啦。
They always knew.
佢一定知道嘅。
And when we opened it, my wife would say something like,
當個門再打開嗰時，我太太會講：
I think you were too severe.
我覺得你當時太嚴格啦。
Honey, I understand that Katie needs to be punished.
我明白 Katie 係需要受
But
懲罰，
not what you want to do.
但係唔係你想做嘅嘢。
She didn't rob a bank.
佢冇打搶一間銀行。
All my wife would say,
而我太太只會講：
honey, rethink it.
親愛哋，再諗諗。
She never once said, you're wrong.
佢從來唔會話我做錯咗，
You need to change.
或者你需要改變。
She's pretty smart.
佢非常之聰明，
I would react to that.
我一定會同佢嗌交。
It's like my wife never says, honey,
So
you're
我太太-
following that car too closely.
我太太成日都話我跟得前面嗰架車太近啦。
She's learned to say,
佢會講
that other car's leading you closely.
嗰架車離得你太近啦。
I'm just being honest with you.
我即係同你好坦白講啊，
I would say probably 98% of the time over all the years,
我話98%嘅時間，
my wife was right
我太太都係啱嘅，
and I was wrong.
而我係錯嘅。
We'd go back out
我哋就去到出邊，
and I'd say, Katie,
我話 Katie，
I owe you an apology.
我要向你道歉，
The discipline was too severe.
正話我俾你嘅懲罰係太嚴，
Please forgive me.
請你原諒我。
This will be the discipline.
呢個就係個新嘅懲罰。
But then, men,
係我哋在座嘅男人，
I always look for every opportunity to elevate my wife in the presence of my children.
每一次等我太太喺在場嘅時候咧，我就要諗個辦法去提高佢嘅地
I
位。
think every time I would say something like this,
我每次都會咁講，
I'd put my arm around my child and we'd walk away.
我抱住我個小孩子，我哋行開。
Say, you know, Katie,
我話 Katie，你知唔知啊？
you better go thank your mother
你去多謝你媽媽，
because she just saved your hide.
佢啱啱救咗你一命。
You better go thank your mom for talking to your dad.
你要多謝你媽媽同我講話，
So my kids always knew
所以我小孩子一定知道。
when we went behind those doors and closed them,
所以我哋閂住埋門嗰時候咧，
Dad was getting it,
爸爸俾教訓，
and I'd come back out
我出咗嚟，
and I would back off the discipline.
我就會將原來嘅懲罰
That
減
was
少。
my problem in discipline.
呢個就係我喺懲罰嘅一啲問題。
Now, believe it or not, my wife had a problem.
你可能唔信，但係我太太都有問題。
This was her problem.
呢個就係佢嘅問題。
And I think it's true of a lot of mothers.
大部分嘅媽媽都有呢個問題，
And the reason is they're around the child all the time.
因為佢哋成日都喺同小朋友一齊，
Fathers usually aren't.
而爸爸唔喺度，
So mothers become a little numb.
所以媽媽會覺得有啲麻木，
They don't see things.
佢哋睇唔到啲嘢。
But the father comes home
當爸爸翻屋企嗰時候，
and they see something immediately.
佢一下就睇到件事。
Honey, how could you let Katie do that?
你點可以俾 Katie 做呢啲嘢啊？
Why didn't you do? And my wife would say, honey, I really didn't see it.
我太太話：我真係冇見到，
I'm around the kids all the time.
我成日都同佢哋就一齊。
You come home.
你翻到屋企，
You need to give me a little grace.
你應該俾我啲機會。
My wife's problem was this.
我太太嘅問題喺呢度，
We would set a
我哋會
discipline,
有啲紀律，
and my wife wouldn't follow through with it.
我太太唔會遵守，
She'd kind of relax a little bit,
佢通常都放佢哋一馬，
and my kids knew that she would.
而我啲小朋友亦都知道佢會放
Now,
鬆，
I can understand it
我明白嘅，
because she was around our children so much more than I was.
因為佢成日都係同啲小朋友一齊，
And a mother becomes a little numb to it.
所以佢有啲麻木啦。
This is why a mother needs a father also.
呢個就點解個媽媽需要個爸爸喺度？
I was too severe,
我可能太嚴格，
and my wife wouldn't follow through.
而我太太就唔會去執行，
So my kids always knew
所以我嘅小朋友都知道，
they could get away with things with their mother
所以佢喺個母親面前佢可以做好多嘢，
and not their dad.
喺個爸爸面前就唔得啦。
See if this is true in a Chinese family.
你諗諗喺個中國人嘅家庭裏邊呢個啱唔啱？
My children learn
我嘅小朋友都學到，
that when my wife told them to do something,
我太太請佢哋做啲嘢嘅時候，
they didn't really have to do it
佢哋唔一定要做，
until her voice reached a certain octave.
等到佢嘅聲音到某一個程度，
Honey, take out the garbage.
好將個垃圾攞出去，
Nothing.
冇事發生。
Son, would you take out the garbage?
好，孩子可唔可以將呢個垃圾攞出去？
Nothing.
都冇事發生。
Sean, Jocelyn, McDowell, would you take out the garbage?
我要話到 Sean，你要將個垃圾攞出去。
Okay.
好啦，做啦，
Because they knew
因為佢哋知道，
their mom really didn't mean it
佢哋知道佢媽媽根本
until
冇呢
their
個諗
voice
法。
reached a certain octave.
到佢嘅聲音到某一個程度，佢哋
My wife could
知
never
道。
understand it.
而我太太從來都唔明
I
白，
could whisper,
我只要細細聲講
Sean,
，Sean，
would you take out the trash?
要將啲垃圾攞出去，
Trash is out.
即刻攞出去。
Why?
點解呢？
They knew I
佢
meant
哋
it.
知道我係咁講。
This is where I needed to help my wife.
呢個就係我要幫我太太嘅地方。
And so, in disciplining our children, it was each of us helping each other in our weakness.
所以喺教導我哋嘅小朋友嘅時候，我哋係一齊配合。
Then, it's time to wrap this up.
我哋而家要做個結束啦。
Number 6,
第六
authority.
係權威。
Listen carefully to several things that I share here.
你要好小心聽我分享嘅幾件事，
Because as in my culture, these several things are strange. It'll really be strange in your culture.
因為喺美國嘅文化當中，呢啲嘢好唔尋常。我相信喺你嘅文化當中都係唔尋常。
I've learned one thing over the years.
咁多年嚟，我學咗件事，
People use culture as a crutch.
佢哋用佢哋嘅文化作為一個藉口。
Doesn't matter if it's in Africa,
喺非洲佢哋咁講，
America,
美國咁講，
Asia, or
或者
South
喺
America.
亞洲或者喺南美洲，
People use culture as a crutch.
佢哋用佢哋嘅文化作為藉口。
Authority.
權威，
With our children,
我哋嘅小朋友，
they need to come to understand
佢哋要明白，
that we do have authority over their lives.
我哋對佢哋嘅生命係有權威嘅。
They need to understand they need to do what we ask them to do,
佢哋要知道我哋有權叫佢做應做嘅嘢。
but here's several good pointers.
呢度有幾個好好嘅指示。
Never parent out of position.
從來都冇喺教導嗰時冇一個權柄，
Parent out of a relationship.
你要喺同你嘅細路哥有個關係，
It's so much more powerful than a child's life.
呢個只係最有效嘅方法。
I believe as a parent,
我覺得作為父母，
when you need to appeal to your child to your position,
當你要用你嘅地位嘅時候，
because I'm your father,
因為我係你嘅爸爸，
you've lost it.
你就已經輸咗啦，
You've lost it.
因為你完全輸咗。
You don't parent out of a position.
你唔好用你嘅地位去作為父母，
You parent out of a relationship.
你要有一個關係去教養
It
佢
should
哋。
be the relationship that gives you the authority, not the position.
應該係呢個關係而俾你呢個權威，而唔係你嘅地位俾到個權威俾你。
I don't think I've ever, maybe except in a joking way, ever said, because I'm your father.
我諗我從來都冇講過，因為我係你嘅爸爸。
I'll say, son, because I love you.
佢話仔啊，我好愛你。
I'm always trying to establish my authority from the relationship.
我通常都係通過嗰個關係去建立我嘅權威，
It's so much more powerful in a child's life
因為呢個對一個細佬哥影響最大。
because kids respond so much more out of a relationship than a position.
因為小孩子對於呢個反應係最正面
It's
嘅，
like in my country.
就好似喺美國。
I'm sure it's not true in Hong Kong,
我相信喺香港一定唔啱，
but in the church,
喺教會裏邊，
especially the more fundamental the church is,
一個越保守嘅教會，
because of wrong teaching by the church,
可能係一啲錯誤嘅教導。
the husband says something like this,
個丈夫會咁講：
because I'm the authority, I'm the husband in the house, and wives are supposed to obey their husbands.
因為我係我屋企裏邊嘅權威，我係個丈夫，所以啲妻子要聽從個丈夫嘅講話。
That's stupid.
呢個係完全錯誤嘅，
That's idiotic.
呢個係完全白痴嘅，
That's asinine.
呢個係完全冇道理嘅。
Can you think of any other word?
Ridiculous！
Ridiculous. I cannot tell you how many Christian men,
我見過好多基督徒
because I'm the
嘅
head of
男
the
人
house,
話：我因為我係一家之主，
men, the
男人，
moment you have to appeal to your position, you've lost it.
當你需要用你嘅地位的話，
You've lost it.
你已經輸咗。
Yes, I'm to be the head of my household.
當然你係一家之主，
But I'm not to lord it over my wife.
但係我唔可以就因為咁
I'm
而
never
去
to lead. Because I am the head of the house.
你唔可以話因為我要領導，因為我係一家之主。
My wife needs to know I do it because I love you.
我太太要知道，我去領導係因為我愛佢。
Lead out of the relationship, not out of the position.
因為個關係而去領導，而唔係因為你嘅地位。
Second,
第
contrary to what everyone teaches in my culture,
二，同好多美國人講嘅唔同，
I mean pastors, everything.
唔你係牧師又好，邊個又好，
I disagree with them,
我同佢哋嘅意見都不同，
especially in parenting.
尤其是喺做父母呢件事。
As a Christian,
作為一個基督徒，
as a father,
作為一個父親，
I am not responsible for my children.
我對我嘅小孩子冇責任，
I'm not.
我冇責任。
If I thought I was responsible for my children, I'd probably go crazy.
我如果以為我有責任的話，我真係會癲咗㗎啦。
Boy, are you quiet.
你真係冇聲，
I'm not
安靜。
responsible for my children.
我對我嘅孩子冇責任。
Folks, hear me here.
不過你要明白呢樣嘢，
This is a major departure.
呢個就係一個好大嘅不同，
It's a whole different motivation in parenting.
呢個係完全唔同嘅睇法。
And I deal with this extensively in the 6A's book.
我喺呢本6A 嘅書裏邊講得好清楚，
I am not responsible for my children.
我對我嘅小孩子冇責任，
I'm responsible to my children.
但係呢，我對佢哋有呢個責任，
I'm responsible to love them,
我要去愛佢哋，
to provide for them,
去睇到佢哋有需
to
要，
feed them,
去俾佢哋食
to
飯，
clothe them.
俾佢哋衣服，
I'm responsible to love their mother.
去愛佢嘅母親，
I'm responsible to be patient with them.
我亦都要對佢哋有耐心，
I'm responsible to my children to live out Christ before them.
我要將耶穌帶到佢哋面前，
I'm responsible to my children to teach them the Word of God.
我要教導我嘅小孩子神嘅説話，
I'm responsible to my children to teach them values.
我要俾好嘅價值觀俾佢哋，
I'm responsible to my children
我亦都對佢哋有責任，
to provide security.
等佢哋有安全嘅地方。
I'm responsible to my children to educate them.
我亦都要教導佢哋，等佢哋有受到教育。
But I'm not responsible for what they do with it.
但係我對佢哋所做嘅嘢冇責任，
They are.
佢哋有責任。
If I thought I was responsible for my children,
如果我覺得我對佢哋一切有責任的話咧，
it'd take all the fun out of parenting.
呢個做父母親就完全
Right,
冇
every
晒
time I
樂
turn
趣。
around, I think, oh, what a bad parent I am.
我就會話我做得幾差，
No,
冇。
I just got to make sure
我真係要確定一件事，
that as a father,
作為一個爸爸，
that I fulfill my responsibilities to my children.
我要將我對佢哋嘅責任都
As
盡
they
晒出
grow
嚟。
up,
但係佢哋長大嗰時候，
I'm not responsible for what they do with it.
我對佢哋嘅行為冇
If
責
I
任。
thought I were,
如果唔係的話，
I would never experience the joy I've experienced in all the years as a daddy.
我就唔會有做一個爸爸嘅樂趣啦。
Then,
跟住
I don't know of anyone else in my country that does this.
喺美國可能冇人做過呢件事。
I, as a father, became responsible to my children.
我作為一個爸爸咧，對我嘅小朋友有一個責任，
I gave them an authority
我俾佢哋一個咁嘅權威
to talk to me.
去話俾我知。
I first went to my wife
我首先去到我太太嗰度，
and I said, honey,
我同我太太講：
I love you.
我愛你，
I'm just absolutely thrilled to be your hubby.
我非常之高興我係你嘅丈夫。但係
I make a lot of mistakes in life.
我有好多嘅錯誤，
I've got a lot in my background to overcome.
有好多我背景需要去處理。
I don't know what it means for a man to love a woman.
我唔知點樣至可以愛一個女
I
人，
never saw it
因為我從來未見過，
in my parents.
喺我父母裏嘅關係當中冇見過。
I never really knew what it meant to be a husband.
我從來都唔知點可以做一個好嘅丈夫。
So I said, honey,
我話太太，
if every man would do this,
如果每一個男人都會咁做的話，
I need your help.
佢話我需要你幫助，
I give you permission
我俾呢個權柄俾你
to confront me.
去問我。
If I'm not spending time with you,
如果我冇同你花時間一齊的話，
I'm not acting in a loving way,
如果我冇一個去關
if
愛
I'm
你的
not
話，
meeting your needs,
我如果冇令到你嘅需要受到，
you have my permission
你有我嘅允許
to confront me.
去話俾我知。
Wow.
哇！
You give some women an inch,
你俾佢一寸，
and they'll take a mile.
佢會攞一里。
I went to my children.
我同我啲小朋友講，
With each one of my kids,
對每一個人每一個小孩子
at
講，
about 4 or 5 years old,
喺4、5歲嗰時咧，
like my first child, Kelly,
就我哋第一個女，
I'd take her out somewhere special.
我去一個好特別嘅地方，
I'd say, honey,
我話俾佢聽，女兒，
I need your help.
我需要你幫我，
I love you so much.
我非常之愛你，
I am so thankful to be your daddy.
我感謝神，我係你嘅爹哋，
I think it's the greatest thing in the world.
我覺得呢個係最重要嘅事。
But Kelly,
但係 Kelly，
I've never been the father of a 4-year-old daughter.
我從來冇做過一個4歲孩子嘅爸爸，我從來未做過嘅，
I need your help.
我需要你幫忙。
Will you help me this year
你今年要幫我
to be a good daddy?
做一個好嘅父親
Kelly, honey,
，Kelly。
if I'm not spending time with you,
如果我冇同你有足夠嘅時間喺一齊，
you have my permission to tell me.
你可以話俾我知。
If I'm not meeting your needs,
我如果冇令到你嘅需要受到滿
you have
足，
my permission to tell me.
你可以話俾我知。
Honey, if I'm too busy,
如果我太忙的話，
please tell me.
你要話俾我知。哇！
Then my son came along.
咁我個仔嚟啦，
I said, son,
我話俾佢聽，我話仔啊，
I've never been a father,
我
a
從來
5-year-old son.
未做過一個5歲男孩子嘅爸
Will you
爸。
help me this year?
你要幫我
And then at 6,
喺6歲嗰時，
son, I've never been the father of a 6-year-old son.
我從來未做過6歲孩子嘅爸爸。
I did it all the way up through high school, 17 years old.
我一直做到佢哋17歲讀
But
中
then
學。
my third daughter came along.
咁我第3個女，
Said, Katie, I need your help.
我話 Katie，我需要你幫忙。
I've never been a father
我從來未做過一
of
個
a
爸爸，
blonde, blue-eyed 5-year-old.
一個藍色眼睛嘅5歲孩子。
Then with my Heather,
咁你點幫我？
honey,
你要幫我。
I've never been the father of a black-haired, black-eyed little girl.
我從來未做過一個黑色頭髮、黑色眼睛嘅女兒嘅爸爸。
And I did all the way through high school.
我一直到佢哋讀中學都咁做。
I gave my children permission
我俾我嘅孩子呢個權柄，
to confront me.
佢同我講：
Do you know what I did with that?
你知我點咁做啦？
I established my authority with my children.
我就喺我孩子面前建立咗呢個權威。
That's called servant leadership.
呢個就叫做一個僕人嘅
I
領
don't
導
have to。be a dictator over my children.
我從來都唔係一個專制嘅爸爸。
Then, I'm going to close with this.
我要結束啦，
Follow through
你要一直嘅去
on
做。
your discipline.
每一次你要去教導你嘅小朋友嘅
It
時候，
really adds to your authority.
因為你做得好嘅教導的話咧，佢哋係會尊重你嘅權威。
How you doing?
Well,
Pretty good?
Yep,
Good.
pretty well.
Good. My son was 14 years old.
我仔14歲嗰時，
Each one of us around the house had our responsibilities.
我哋每個人都喺屋企裏邊有啲責任。
For my son,
我個仔咧，
it was to take the trash out to the trash can every morning before he went to school.
每日朝早佢未翻學之前咧，就要將啲垃圾攞出去出邊。
One morning, I was walking through the house,
有一日朝頭早，我喺我屋企嗰時行下，
and it was still trash
仲有垃圾喺裏邊，
in the trash can
仲喺垃圾桶裏邊，
inside the house.
喺屋裏邊。
I said, honey,
我話太太
has Sean gone to school?
，Sean 翻咗學未啊？
Yeah, a half hour ago.
佢話半個鐘之後走咗啦，
But he never took out the trash.
但係佢冇將啲垃圾攞出去喎。
My wife would always do something like, oh, he just forgot it.
而我太太就話：哦，佢啱啱忘記咗啫。
We'll have him take it out when he gets home.
我會喺佢翻嚟嗰時叫佢攞出去啦。
I say,
我話唔得，
he's going to take it out now.
佢要而家將佢攞出去。
You're going to do what, honey?
佢要點做啊？
I said, I'm going to drive to school.
我話我要揸車去學校，
I'm going to pull him out of class.
叫佢喺個班度出嚟，
I'm going to tell him to get on his bike
佢踩單車翻嚟，
and bike 1.5 miles home
大約1.5 公
and take
里
the，trash out,
然後攞個垃圾桶出去，
then go back to school.
然後再翻學。
She said, you can't do that.
佢話你唔可以咁做，
I said, just watch me.
佢話你睇我會咁做。
So I drove to school.
我揸車去到學校，
I went into the superintendent.
我去到嗰個校長面前，
I said, I need to have Sean excused from his first hour class.
我話俾佢聽，我話我要將我仔帶翻屋企一個
Okay,
鐘。
but why?
話點解啊？
Well, he needs to go home and take the trash out.
因為佢要翻屋企將個垃圾攞出嚟。
The superintendent said, what?
個校長話：你冇搞錯啊！
I said, in our house, we have responsibilities. He didn't do it. So he needs to learn the lesson, go home and do it.
我話喺我哋屋企裏邊有啲責任，佢要翻屋企去做
Over。the loudspeaker, Sean McDowell, would you come to the superintendent's office?
所以佢就喺個擴音器嗰度話：Sean McDowell，你要嚟到校長室。
Hi, Dad, what are you doing here?
喂，爸爸你喺度做乜啊？
Son,
好，兒子，
did you take the trash out?
你有冇將個垃圾攞出去咧？今朝？
Oh, Dad.
哦，我忘記咗，
Oh, I can't believe it.
我忘記咗。
Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry I forgot to.
我忘記咗，唔好意思。
Okay, I forgive you.
我原諒你。
But I want you to go out and get in your bike
我要你出去攞你個單車，
and go home and take the trash out.
翻屋企將個垃圾攞出嚟。
What?
你想我點做啊？
I think you heard me.
我諗你聽到啦。
But I'm in class. I'm sorry,
我而家
son.
上緊堂，
You should have thought about that before you left home.
你應該喺你離開屋企之前就諗到呢件事。
He got in his bike, went all the way home, took the little trash thing out the door, dumped it, got in his bike, and went back to school.
佢踩單車翻屋企，拎咗個垃圾出嚟，再踩單車翻學。
Later that afternoon,
嗰日下晝，
the superintendent called me.
個校長打電話俾我，
He said, I've been thinking about what you did.
我喺度諗你做嘅嘢，
He said, I've never known another parent to do that.
從來冇一個父母會咁做嘅。
But he said, I wish every parent would.
但係我希望每一個父母都會咁做。
You have made your son a better person,
你將你嘅仔教導成更好嘅人，
and he's going to be a better student at school.
而佢會係個更好嘅學生。
Plus, my son
而我個仔
still takes the trash out.
到今日都係攞個垃
But you
圾出去。
see, when I followed through with it,
你睇到我如果係執行嘅嘢，
it helped to establish my authority.
佢就令到我建立咗權威。
Wow, we've covered a lot tonight.
今日我哋講咗好多，
And I got to go to where? Hangzhou, is that what it's called?
亨咗，
Hangzhou.
佢要去杭州啦，
Hangzhou tomorrow. And then Shanghai.
然後去上海，
And then Beijing.
然後去北京，
And then I'm going home
然後佢翻屋企啦，
and celebrate my anniversary.
又慶祝我嘅週年紀念，
A week and a half late.
遲咗個半星期。
Thank you.
多謝你哋，
Thank you
多謝大家
for the privilege
俾我呢個機會，
of allowing me to be one, just a guest in your country, and that you've allowed me tonight to be a part of your life. I don't take that lightly.
多謝你邀請我嚟同你分享你嘅生命，我好重視呢件事。
And again, I encourage you,
所以我鼓勵你
pick up the 6A book.
買嗰本書，
You want to do it. Now, pay for it, but
你當然要俾錢啦。
this can help you.
但係呢本書會幫助你，
I'm not going to stay afterwards and autograph books.
我唔會再簽名啦。
I was here early and
There you are, not autographing.
I was here early between the session. I can't autograph, but I've got to fly out tomorrow morning.
但我聽朝一早就要走，所以我唔可以再留低。
And I like to discipline my time.
我亦都要有啲好有紀律嘅時間。
And I want to thank my translator.
我要多謝呢個翻譯。Thank you.
He told me he was the best in Hong Kong.
I think they understood you.
This is my final comment.
因為我最後一件事
I
講
live
嘅
in
嘢，
Southern California.
我喺加州嘅南部住。
And if you ever get kicked out of your house
如果你俾人趕出你屋企，
and you have to move, or you come to Southern California
你嚟到南加州嗰時，
and you don't have any money,
而你冇錢、
nowhere to stay,
冇地方住、
no food,
冇食物、
no tickets to Disneyland,
冇去迪士尼樂園嘅飛，
you call me
你打電話俾我，
and I will pray for you.
我會為你祈禱。
我哋多謝，再一次掌聲去多謝郭博士俾我哋呢個咁好嘅分享。